Reagan building. All right. Here we go. Here we go. What's up, everyone? Dr. Tameka here. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Procurement Project. I am here in Washington, D.C. in the Ronald Reagan building. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about procuring the book. So as you all know, my book, Black Hair in a White World, is being released today. Today is the official launch day for the book. I'm super excited about that. And so as we go into this procurement process, I want to make sure that you not only procure the book, but procure some knowledge, as well as we want to procure the opportunity for Black people to be able to show up exactly the way that they want to in any environment possible. So today, I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about some of our history. As you can see, I hope you all can see my slides. You'll see that there is a beautiful image of ancient Egyptian and Nunk ancient artwork here on the screen. As you know, our Black hair not only started, we've been told that Black hair started, the whole process, the issues, the history of Black hair started during the enslavement times, and that is absolutely not true. Our history started way, way, way back in ancient Egyptian times. These beautiful images that you see are a representation that braids has been a part of our culture for thousands of years. The Nunk tradition, that was the Nunk, ancient Nunks, that was from the Nigerian era, what we know today of as Nigeria, and that was back in 550 BC. And Isis, of course, we all know goddess Isis. She is a very, very famous Egyptian goddess, and supposedly, according to legend, braids actually started with Isis because she had magic hair. She was supposedly the first person to be ever seen wearing braids. And then Isis taught other people how to braid. And that's how braiding became a part of our tradition. And so today I'm also going to talk to you guys a little bit about some of the beautiful traditional hairstyles that women wore before enslavement. These are hairstyles that are traditional hairstyles from various parts of Africa that are known hairstyles for priestesses, for women that were the daughter of chiefs and other high up ranks in African tribes. And oftentimes the hairstyle that one would wear would be an indicator of whether or not you were ready to get married, whether you were in puberty, whether like whatever status you might be in your particular tribe. So your hair oftentimes would match that. And so these beautiful hairstyles come from Congo, from Namibia, from South Africa, from Guinea. And these are just a few examples of some beautiful traditional hairstyles that African people wore before enslavement. Here are some beautiful hairstyles from our men. I don't want to leave out our men. The Maasai warrior is the hairstyles that they wore, these really tiny, skinny, small cornrows and plaited braids that Maasai warriors wear is a really famous hairstyle. We've seen this hairstyle quite a bit, but something that we may not have seen is the Amasuzun from Rwanda. The men oftentimes would shave a portion of their scalp and then sculpt the other part of their hair in a way that would reflect who they are in the tradition, who they are a part of the tribe, what status they might hold. And then, of course, in the Namibia, our Himba people, the men would wear these beautiful single braids to the back, and oftentimes they would cover these braids with this beautiful red ochre. So our hairstyles, our braided hairstyles, our sculpted Black hairstyles are not just a reflection of us aesthetically, but it's also oftentimes a reflection of Black people's identity, our status within our family, and as well as just a way to be able to show other people across the continent who we are and who we belong to. So these are some hairstyles that are popular today. And these are some styles that are inspired by hairstyles that we've seen, like cultural, traditional types of hairstyles. So the Fulani braids are very, very popular nowadays. And we've seen people like Alicia Keys, Rihanna, and Solange wearing these types of braids. Of course, Beyonce was also inspired. If you haven't seen her movie, Black is King, you should go out and see it. It's absolutely a beautiful film, and this is one of the shots from that film where she had these amazing hairstyles that was very similar. If I go back a few steps, you can see this hairstyle that is worn by the Mangbetu women in Congo. That hairstyle is very similar to the hairstyle that Beyonce is wearing in Black is King. And then we cannot forget about Shawnee Crow. Shawnee Crow is a contemporary artist that not only is an artist, a sculptor, but she also is a famous braider. She's braided people's hair, such as Solange. She's braided Beyonce's hair. And she has a beautiful documentary that I was actually lucky enough to be a part of. The Ebony Magazine and Bloomberg did a documentary called Braids, where I think it was How It's Made, Braids, How It's Made. And Shawnee Crow, as well as myself and Dr. Underwood, we were a part of that documentary because they loved, Ebony Magazine loved texture so much, and they invited us to be a part of that. And so these beautiful braids by Shawnee Crow are just an example of how we can begin to use traditional hairstyles as a way of artwork and as a way of just being able to express ourselves. So the picture below is a wonderful picture from Shawnee Crow that was inspired not only from traditional cornrows, but also too from when we think about Nigerian hairstyles. Nigerian hairstyles, including the wrapping process that you'll oftentimes see, or it's often called threading, is what you call it. But the threading or wrapping hairstyle that you see in Nigeria, Shawnee Crow also used that technique in these two, in this image below with the two models who have these amazing, almost kind of like mohawk crowns that they're wearing in a sunburst cornrows on the side, which is just absolutely gorgeous. And so I'm just going to give you a little bit of history just to kind of give you some perspective of what Black hair has looked like for the past century. So the 20th century in 1900s, by this time, slavery was abolished, and Black people began to have to figure out how they were not only how they were going to provide for their family, but how they were going to show up in the world. And so in the 1900s, free Black people started wearing their hair in cropped hairstyles. They were wearing braids. By the 1920s, Black people started seeking some employment. So they wanted to become employable. A lot of times they began to become entrepreneurs, starting their own businesses. And as a result, for those people, for those individuals to be considered quote unquote employable, what they ended up having to do was straighten their hair. And so in the 1910s and 1920s, thanks to people such as Madam C.J. Walker, Annie Malone, and who else? Another person was, oh my goodness, his name escapes me right now, but I know Marcus Garvey during that time, he actually was so against Black people straightening their hair. Oh, Garrett Morgan, yes. How can we forget? Of course, too, because he's from Cleveland. But Garrett Morgan, Madam C.J. Walker, Annie Malone, these are all entrepreneurs and inventors that actually made it so that Black people could straighten their hair with products such as hair straightening combs, tonics. They made shampoos and things like that so that Black people can begin to quote unquote assimilate and acculturate into these dominant cultures so that they can get employment. But people such as like Booker T. Washington, he predicted that hair straightening and bleaching would lead to internalization of white concepts of beauty, which is really deep, right? Because this is something that we're still dealing with today as Black people. So in the 1930s, Blacks continued to emulate white beauty by straightening their hair. They also, by this time, was using bleaching creams like they had started. There were companies out there that were specifically targeting Black people, Black companies as well as white companies that were targeting Black people, selling these hair straightening products and selling bleaching creams. This was also that Black people could become employable. By the 1940s, Jose Calva actually developed a permanent straightener for Black people. This was the very first chemical permanent straightener that Black people could use. It was a step above what Garrett Morgan had originally invented in 1909. Well, which his company called the Hair Refining Cream organization that he created. But Jose Calva figured out a way to make this chemical base that can be used to permanently straighten Black hair. Well, we all know that it's not quote unquote permanent, but what we know of today as our traditional perm or hair straightener. And so by the 1950s, Johnson's company invented the first lye hair relaxer. So if you all are not familiar with lye hair relaxers, lye is a chemical product that is used oftentimes in hair straighteners. And this is a product that is a product that's also oftentimes very harmful to hair, but it's something that is used to straighten. It straightens fast. It straightens on a permanent basis. And so this is now in the 1950s, Black people are not only using hot combs, they're now permanently able to straighten their hair with companies, products that they can buy at the store. And then by the 1960s and 70s, we all know that this is the Black Power movement. We emerged into civil rights and we started encouraging Black people to wear their hair natural. But then by the 1980s, unfortunately, now Black people were now going into corporate spaces. Black people were now moving out of the civil rights movement. We had gotten the right to vote. We had gotten some other privileges that were given to Black people because of the struggle and the fight. But now, 1980s, Black people were starting to kind of relax in that. In those benefits from the civil rights movement, and they went back to straightening their hair. They actually started wearing something called the Jerry curl, which was invented in the 1980s by an individual by the name of his name was, oh my goodness, Jerry. Okay, oh my goodness, what was his name? Jerry Redding was his name. Jerry Redding was a Jewish man who invented the Jerry curl, what we know of today as the Jerry curl. Many, many Black people had it. I know I had it. It was probably one of the worst products ever made for Black people because it was a destructive product, because not only did it straighten and then it curled, you had to use a product to curl the hair, but it also was a very drying product that dried out Black hair. It took my hair out. It took a lot of people's hair out. Some people talk about the fact that the Jerry curl grew their hair, but it was an awful, awful product. And Jerry Redding, a white Jewish man, made billions of dollars off of Black people by inventing that product. Now we get into the 1990s. Most Black people are still using chemical straighteners. Most Black men by this time have not have basically like kind of left chemical treatments alone and just left them for women to wear. So Black women at this time in the 1990s, they're wearing more of an eclectic mix. So they're straightening their hair. Black women are also using braided hairstyles. Some people at this time might be going back to starting to wear their hair natural towards the late 1900s. And then once we get to the 2000s, that is when the Black hair begins to make a shift into what we know of as the natural hair movement. And so many Black people, many Black women at that particular time were now making the hard decision, because it is a hard decision when Black women are deciding whether or not to wear their hair natural or not. It's a difficult decision because it's a lifestyle change. So not only is it an aesthetic change, but it's a lifestyle change. And so in the early 2000s, Black women were making the decision now to move into what we call the natural hair movement. And so what is Black hair doing today? And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So Black hair, the future of Black hair, I believe, is going to stay on the fashion cycle. So many of you all know that I'm a fashion design scholar and have been for many years. And as we all know, fashion waves in cycles, right? Waves and cycles that change about every 20 years. So if we look back at that timeline that I just talked about, we can see an evolution of Black hair, how it's gone back and forth over a series of 20 years. And the most recent example, of course, is the 2000s, when we had the natural hair movement. And now that we're in 2020, Black women are starting to make this shift back into wearing straightened hair, and then also too into really pushing this whole idea of this luxurious Hawaiian silky Brazilian wig that a lot of women are wearing. So I believe that in another 20 years, Black hair will again go back to what we know of as kind of like a natural hair movement, where a lot of Black women will be wearing their hair natural again. But what I want to do, the work that I'm doing, is I wanted to continue to create awareness for women to be able to step away from what we know of as a fashion cycle and focus on authentically loving your own beauty. And what that looks like is Black women stepping into their authentic beauty without thinking that they might have to mask for whatever reason. Masking meaning might be chemically straightening their hair, masking meaning wearing wigs. And now I'm looking at trying to get women to be aware and to begin to truly love our authentic beauty without all of the extra. So I want people to start thinking about black hair as being fashionable as it is, but not a trend. We don't want to constantly be on this 20-year cycle that we know of as the fashion cycle, and our hair eat like going ebb and flowing, with whatever this 20-year cycle might be. We want to think about black hair as a fashionable hairstyle that represents black women and who we authentically are. Black Hair in a White World is the new book that I just came out with. Today, again, is the launch day, and I'm so proud. And so I right now would and love to invite you to procure the book. So if you look on the screen, there is a QR code there. You can scan the QR code, and together we can procure the book. So the book is available on Amazon. It's also available on Barnes and Noble, but I am trying to make this book an Amazon bestseller. So if you would now get out your phones, scan that QR code, go on, order your book right now so that you can help me become an Amazon bestseller, and so that we can continue to spread the awareness, spread the knowledge about black hair and the importance of even continuing to study this topic. I have been studying black hair now since 2002. When I was a master's student at Michigan State, I made the decision to make black hair a part of my line of inquiry, as we call it in academia. And I had a lot of people questioning me as to why I would even want to study something like black hair. And I had people asking me, well, what exactly is there to study about black hair? There is so many things to study about black hair because it's such a part of who we are as black culture, who we are as black people. And not only is black hair a part of black history, but it's a part of overall American history. It's a part of overall global history, because if we think about anytime there was colonization in the world, no matter where the colonization was, there was always issues of race. There's always issues of discrimination. There's going to definitely be some issues of hair discrimination. So black hair is not something that is just an American issue. It is something that is a global problem that needs to be solved. And luckily, we are in the process of doing various things, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. What the United States has been trying to do to help get rid of this whole idea of discrimination of black hair. But if you haven't already, go ahead and scan the QR code. Grab your copy of Black Hair in a White World. Let's make this book an Amazon bestseller so that we can begin to teach, so we can begin to understand, and so that we can begin to love. That's the whole process. That's what I've been wanting my research to do, is to get people to understand, to get people to have a better connection to the humanization of Black people. Many of you all may have seen my exhibition Textures. If you haven't seen it, Textures we do have on the Kent State University Museum's website. We have a link that can take you to the guided tour. Dr. Joseph and I, who was my co-curator for Textures, the History and Art of Black Hair, we actually have a full online virtual tour of the exhibition space. But when we created that exhibition, one of the main things that we really, really wanted to push is this idea of understanding Black people as human beings. Part of the reason why we still have discrimination today in various aspects, not just in race, but it might be in the LGBTQ plus area. Maybe it might be in looking at people who are physically, quote unquote, disabled. But what it is the reason why there's still so much discrimination is because people just don't understand, and they don't see those people as being 100% human. Until we begin to see each other as 100% human, we will always have discrimination. And that's part of the issue, is that Black people still today are not seen as 100% human. So if you haven't already done so, go ahead and grab your copy of Black Hair in a White World. And what I also would like to invite you all today to do is to learn more about the Crown Act. Black hair discrimination brings forth what we know of today as the Crown Act. The Crown stands for Creating, a respectable and open world for natural hair. And the reason why this legislation had to come into place is because in so many instances, Black people have been discriminated against because of their natural hair texture. They've been discriminated against by not getting jobs. They've been discriminated against, and these are just some recent examples, not being able to go to school. I remember reading an article about two twin girls who wanted to wear braids to their prom. And they were told that if they wore braids to the prom, they weren't able to going to be allowed to go to prom. And so these are things that are still affecting Black people in so many ways. We need to figure out how we can dispel discrimination, Black hair discrimination across the whole United States. And so one of the ways that we can do that is by enforcing, understanding, bringing awareness to the Crown Act. And so this image that I have here is Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs, who signed the Crown Act, which was again inspired. Which was an inspired order that Arizona created to help ban hair discrimination. And so, just most recently, Texas was the last state, and that just happened a few weeks ago. Texas just passed the Crown Act as legislation to ban hair discrimination. Ohio, my state, unfortunately, still has not passed the Crown Act. We have some amazing legislators on the ground who are working to get that Crown Act passed. I know a friend of mine, Sia in Yorker, who's a news reporter for WOIO. She just reported on the Cleveland NAACP went down to Columbus, our state capital, to talk about the importance of getting the Crown Act passed in Ohio. And so we are still fighting. Many states across the United States are still fighting to get this Crown Act passed. And so I invite you to help us procure this concept of Black people being able to show up however they want, however their authentic selves wants to represent themselves. So let's go ahead, scan the QR code. Today is National Crown Act Day. Today is the 4th anniversary. The first time that we had the Crown Act passed was in California in 2019. California became the very first state to put the Crown Act in order. New York followed right behind. And to date, we actually have 22 states that have the Crown Act as a part of their legislation. We still have about 28 states that have not passed the Crown Act. And so the Crown Act committee, they have a goal of reaching, I think they want 600,000 signatures on their petition, and they have not quite reached that yet, but today we can help them with that. So please go on to the Crown Act petition website and help procure Black people's right to show up as their authentic selves. So I'll give you all a moment to pull out your phone, go ahead and scan the QR code and sign the National Crown Act petition to help Black people not have to deal with discrimination because of their hair. All right. So I'm excited. There's several of you all on today. I see there's some beautiful comments that are coming through. I'm really excited about being on here with you all today. This has been an amazing journey. I plan on going across the United States with Black Hair in a White World. So my first stop, as you all know, is DC. I'm in the Ronald Reagan building. I'm here with my godmother, my beautiful godmother, Tameka. She's here with me today. But we are in the Ronald Reagan building. We're actually, as we speak, once I get off of this call with you all, my mom and I are gonna walk over to the African American Museum, and we're gonna go and enjoy ourselves. And then after that, tonight, I would love to invite you to the event that I'm going to be going to, and I'm going to be a featured author at Sankofa Bookstore. So I'll talk to you all a little bit about that in just a moment. But if you have not already, use your phone, scan the QR code, sign the Crown Act petition, and help Black people reserve the right to show up as their authentic selves. Many of you all who know me know that I've been natural for a long time. I actually stepped into my natural hair journey in 1998. So I have not had any kind of chemical perm relaxer in my hair since 1998, and I could not imagine ever going back to straightening my hair. But there are many Black people like me across the United States that want to be able to feel comfortable wearing their hair however they want to wear it, but they've been put in positions where they don't feel comfortable, especially our people that are in quote unquote conservative professional spaces. The reason why I think I haven't had many issues is because I'm an artist and I'm in artist spaces. Such as fashion and other art types of spaces. Artists typically, I think, have a little bit of a leeway with being able to show up in their authentic way. But people like lawyers and doctors and other people that are in conservative types of fields that they work in have had lots of problems showing up as their authentic self. So if you haven't already, pick up your phone, scan the QR code, sign the Crown Act petition to help us allow Black people, no matter where they work, no matter where they go to school, to be able to show up as their authentic selves. And then tonight, again, I'm going to be doing a book talk for the Sankofa Video Books and Cafe. So I'm really excited about that. So if you would love to join me this evening at 7 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be at Sankofa here in Washington, D.C. I'll be the speaker, the featured speaker author there. And we'll be talking a little bit more about the book, about Black hair in a white world. And I look forward to seeing you all there. There's also a QR code that you can scan for live streaming. So if you can't get this QR code, don't worry. You can go on the Sankofa Video Books and then you can register for the event there. So if you go on Sankofa Video and Books website, there's going to be a little click on the little link for the events. And then you'll go down to my event, which probably today should be the very first top one. Click on my event, and then it'll allow you to register to get on the live stream that's going to be happening this evening at Sankofa Bookstore. I think the ladies that's going to be interviewing me, her name is Christina. Christina, I look forward to talking to her later on today about Black hair in a white world and how we can, again, begin to create awareness for Black beauty, awareness for Black humanness, and awareness to end discrimination for Black hair. So I'm really excited to have you all with me this evening. Thank you for joining me today for the official book launch of Black hair in a white world. And if you want to stay connected with me, please do. I am, of course, on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. You can stay connected with me under Dr. Tameka Ellington. If you go to any of those platforms, please go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. You'll see that also under Dr. Tameka Ellington. Go ahead and follow me on Instagram. And then if you're looking for speaking engagements, if you would like for me to come to your institution to do a speaking engagement and book signing for Black hair in a white world, you can email me at info@drtamekaellington.com. I have a newsletter that I publish every month, talking about different activities that I'm doing, talking about events that are coming up. And if you would love to sign up for the monthly newsletter, go ahead and email my assistant, Kate. Her email is assistant@drtamekaellington.com. And then, of course, I would love to invite you all to be a guest at the Black Beauty Activist podcast. I host a podcast several times throughout the month where I talk about various different topics that are catered towards Black women. Oftentimes I do talk about hair. I talk about other forms of beauty. I talk about discrimination and other things that Black people are dealing with. I even talk about joy. I talk about confidence. These are all things that Black people need in their lives in order to become and able to move throughout the space in a happy, joyous way. I'm always talking about living a joyous life. And the only way that we can do that is through awareness, through understanding, through love, and from a release of what we know of as discrimination. So stay connected with me. I look forward to seeing you all in the future. Hopefully I'll see you all tonight at the Sankofa Bookstore book talk. And thank you all for joining me this evening or this afternoon. Thank you. I'm going to go with my mom now. We're going to go head to the museum and have a good time. All right. Peace out, everybody. Peace.